One of the most requested fans on the channel for quite some time now are Phanteks T30. Not only are they supposed to be the best fan out there, but they are also supposed to outperform the standing champion, the Noctua NF-A12X25. Well, we reached out to Phanteks, a big thank you at this point, and they sent us over a set, so yeah, we finally got our hands on the most promising fan out there. Meet Phanteks T30 120. And let's now finally see if these are really the monsters everybody claims them to be. Okay, so there's quite a lot to cover and I do kind of want to make it fit in a 10-minute video, so let's immediately start here. These are Phanteks monstrous T30 120mm all-rounder fans, and I mean all-rounder fans. No matter if in the marketing material presentational page or if called somewhere on the internet, Phanteks makes sure to call these ultimate PC cooling fans, or simply put, one fan to rule them all. And they really tried their best at delivering. Instead of the usual plastic we all know and hate, Phanteks T30's wings and frames are made out of LCP or liquid crystal polymer, which is basically a different structure that ends up delivering higher rigidity, higher tensile strength and much higher temperature stability. Or in other words, you can make them spin a lot faster at higher temps without bending them or making them break into pieces. It's not the first time we've seen LCP being used. A perfect example would be the Noctua NF-A12X25, which is also like the main or only competitor to the T30. Now, I don't want to dwell too long and repeat myself on this, but by using LCP you are also able to make the wings come closer to the edge of the fan or the fan frame, allowing you to use the actual fan air creating real estate much more efficient, hopefully then resulting in a better fan. But that's not the only thing that Phanteks did here. Usually case fans come in 25mm thickness, and that has been the norm now for many years. That being said, Phanteks thinks differently. With 30mm thickness, these are 5mm thicker than most fans out there. But don't underestimate what 5mm can do. Whoa, that came out wrong. This about 25% increase in thickness did result in a much stronger outer frame, allowing Phanteks to also thicken the whole fan wing area, creating a fan that not only can push a lot more air than a 25mm thick one, but also at higher speed without risking it to fall apart. Overall, having these fans in hand, they do feel quite a lot different from what we are used to. You can definitely feel that structural integrity that this little boost of 5mm brought to the table. Plus, once you make the fan spin with your finger, you can feel that it is quite a lot heavier. Like this feels more like a 140mm fan instead of a 120. It's really heavy. On a side note, you may think that changing the standard 25mm fan thickness might end up in creating other troubles for fitting it into cases. The short answer is no. Both the front and back fan spot have more than enough space in 99.9% of cases out there to accommodate for that 5mm thickness. The only scenario where it could become an issue would be in a very budget oriented case and in the top fan spots if they were designed by a blind guy. But let's be honest, I will not even bother to find those 5 cases out there where this issue might really apply. Just don't get the cheapest case. It's that simple. I mean, cases where this would apply are probably costing less than this set of fans, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. Speaking of fitting in, let's go over the installation method because that one is really well thought through. Beginning with what's in the box. Considering that fan unboxings are usually as boring as unboxing a case, Phanteks really did break the cycle on this one. Instead of some cotton box, these T30s are coming in a styrofoam-like enclosure wrapped in a sheet of cotton containing all of the fan's information and spec sheets. Inside we will find 3 of these styrofoam containers, each containing one T30 as well as a 500mm long extension and this little bag of screws. Now, I already said it, one fan to rule them all, and this is one prime example. Of course, Phanteks did include the mandatory 4 fan self-threading whatever screws, that's mandatory, but they also included 4 radiator screws. And this one is really important. Due to the T30's 30mm thickness, your usual radiator screws will simply not work on here. Therefore, I think it's a really good move for them to provide them to us, just in case that we want to put this on a radiator. But they are not done yet. As it turns out, there is another set of screws which is slightly longer. These are meant for the very specific case that you want to use a T30 on top of a radiator while tuning them with Phanteks RGB Halos fan bracket. Yes, that's an if, here are the screws. Really thought through. And you know what else is really thought through? The cable situation. To take something off the table, of course, these are 4-pin PVM. But what got me is the cable length. If you have been watching some of my Noctua fan reviews, I said that I am not the biggest fan of having the main cable coming out directly at the fan, next to the fan, and then just extend it. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I just had the situation a bit too often where I pulled on the cable and it ripped out, and I could start over by unmounting the fan, and that's just annoying. However, on the T30, they did not do that. And they added a great little feature that I missed on the A12X25. The PVM cable coming out of the fan is 130mm long, providing you with plus minus enough cable length to route that one behind the case where you can extend it using the 500mm long extension cable. So if anything happens, you can do all of the work behind the case without removing the fan. Because that makes sense. To make things even better, they added this little PVM splitter to the fan, something that should be mandatory if you really want to call your fan good. To make things even better, I believe that the 130mm cable length wasn't chosen to make it easier to handle during maintenance, but because it's basically the perfect length to daisy chain one fan to the next one without having too much of the cable hanging away from the fan. Perfect. So okay, connectivity and installation method and possibilities, perfect. Absolutely nothing to nag there, and I really appreciate them thinking about the little things like longer radiator screws and all that kind of stuff. Really amazing. Now on to the most important aspect of these fans. Spec sheet, and that one is going to be a complicated one. Starting off with a big question mark. On Phanteks website, they advertised the fan as spinning up to 2000 RPM. Yeah, well, that's not true. Phanteks used something like a PVM mode switch on their T30 fan. If we turn the fan around, we will see that there is something called hybrid performance and advanced mode, with the switch being accessible between that sticker and the wing. Yes, it's a very inconvenient position if you want to change it after installation. Now, each of these modes will change the max RPM speed at which the fan will be able to spin. The only extra being the lower hybrid mode, which has a total fan stop if you set the PVM to be slower than 50%. That being said, those 2000 RPMs that Phanteks were advertising on their website is not the maximum speed. Those 2000 RPM are actually coming from the performance mode, which will produce about 67 CFM at 3.3mm of H2O. Now, I have kind of an issue with this whole different mode thing. As I already said in the Cooler Master SF120M review, I do not believe that crippling a component's max performance before even using it makes any sense if you can control it live while using it. Now, if we flip the switch to advanced mode, we will unlock the T30's full potential. 3000 RPM, 101 CFM and 7.11, yes, 7.11 millimeters of H2O. Absolutely crazy numbers. And yes, absolutely crazy numbers do come with absolutely crazy noise. Unbearable noise. Server-like noise, to be exact. But my point kinda remains the same. Just control the fans via software and you will have a pleasant experience while keeping that headroom in case everything goes wrong. Funnily enough, Phanteks did not really share my opinion on this one. On the box and promotional material, they repeatedly say to use the performance mode or 2000 RPM limiter. It's also the state that the fans come in. And I do kinda get it, specifically for the T30s. For something like the Cooler Master SF120M and their max speed is 2000 RPM, why would I limit that? On the T30s, however, it's 3000 RPM. And I do know what that sounds like. And let's just say my opinion on the whole RPM crippling the fan speed topic kinda started to shift because of how crazy fast these fans can spin. Because I'm kinda unsure about that, I decided to test the fans in both the normal performance mode and the steroid-induced advanced mode with a bunch of bricks on top so that the PC doesn't fly away. Using our usual benchmark test, we let the T30 cool down our 37 on our decks. While spinning at 100% fan speed in its 2000 RPM mode, the T30s managed to keep the CPU at 44 degrees C above ambient, placing them on the same place as the Be Quiet Silent Wing 3 120 high speed. And this position makes perfect sense. Comparing a Silent Wing 3 to a T30 in its performance mode, they do have kind of the same stats. But once we switch the fans to advanced mode, that's where stuff is starting to happen. While spinning at 3000 RPM, the T30s managed to keep the 37 RX at 36 degrees C above ambient. That's 3 degrees, full 3 degrees cooler than Noctua's NF812X25. And this also means that the T30s are now the absolute kings when it comes to max performance, with quite the freaking margin. Going over to noise to performance, the image does change a tiny bit. If we focus on the line of the T30 in its 3000 RPM mode, we can see why I did start to change my opinion about that whole mode thing. Everything between here and here is about 4 degrees C in exchange for roughly 20 dBs. And I had the fan spinning right next to me at that speed. You do not want that. That's okay for a server, or if you have your PC running like remotely in another room. But if you share the room, forget about it. Unsurprisingly, as soon as the line approaches the T30's 2000 RPM mode, the lines follow the similar pattern with a bit of tolerances left and right due to the PWM not being that accurate. Now let's ignore this whole section for a second, because even though I think it's really freaking cool, it's completely insane and no person will use it, but it's kind of cool that you can. But looking at the noise to performance ratio in a segment where the fan will not slowly drive you to madness, we saw that the T30 marked the second spot when you are looking at the noise at the lower temp areas, but once we slow it down, it kind of starts to fade in with the other ones, while the NF812X25 do keep a significant better ratio compared to the bulk of our other fans. So what does all of this mean for the T30's performance? Well, when it comes to max performance, basically brute force your way through it, these are probably the best 120mm fans you will find right now. It's absolutely crazy performance and a perfect fit if you have a real monster PC in another room, or things like storage, server applications and all that. But as soon as you want to keep a set of T30s running next to you, you will need to get that RPM number down like to 75-50%, which is basically the performance mode to begin with, which is now also the reason why I believe you should leave it in performance mode if you are a normal person. But for us crazy people, advanced mode is like the only way to go. Anyway, in noise to performance, the T30s were able to deliver very respectable results in the upper speeds, while they slowly became average when turning them down. That being said, I still believe that having that insane amount of headroom is the best aspect about these fans. And this perfectly segues into the next section about what did I like and what could be better. On the good side, well, of course, we got that insane amount of performance headroom and completely out of this world max performance. The noise to performance ratio is very respectable, but one place where the T30s were absolutely scoring is build quality. These things are extremely well built. These added 5mm thickness and usage of LCP is making them incredibly sturdy. And then there is also that incredible amount of goodies, and it's not normal for a company to think about every scenario and then actually bother to provide you with a solution for that. Usually you're just left with a normal set of screws and then you go your way, but in this case Phanteks did go the extra mile and I really appreciate that. And the last positive aspect in my book is cabling, especially if you compare these to the Noctua NF812X25s. I believe that these semi-long daisy chain rule PWM cables are super convenient and way easier to handle. On the could have been better side, I thought for a very long time about this, over and over and over again, but I just couldn't come up with anything substantial. Like, noise to performance would always be a better thing. I mean, you can always make the ratio better. Other than that, I just believe that the hybrid mode, like the 1200 RPM, is basically useless. Who would pay that much for a fan and then just cripple it down to that? So all in all, I guess try new things, like maybe a ring around the fans, or like air guiding ridges, like small indentations in the fan using LCP. I don't know, just try new things. But other than that, truly an amazing fan from every angle you look at it. On the price side, it's actually pretty fair. The MSRP is set to be around 85 euros for a triple pack, and which is around 28 euros per piece, which, although expensive compared to like China stuff, it's really much alright considering the alternatives in the same performance category do cost exactly the same. So in the end, who are these fans for? Honestly, power users. From both a price and performance perspective, these are truly aimed at people who are looking at the very best, and considering our max performance charts, if you do look for the very best and you don't care about the jet engine, it won't get much better than this one. But okay, this should be it for the Phanteks T30 Monster fans. At this point, I would like to thank Phanteks for sending them over to us. But if you want to keep watching, have a look at our Phanteks P500A review, which during the review became my absolute favorite case. And on a side note, we now have a Discord server, so if you want to hop on, I will leave the links in the description below so we can all share our dirty cable management picks. See you in the next one. Bye bye.